Dang, it's been a while since I've done this. I have my little notes right here, and it's really nice to... Hey y'all, welcome back to House CM. It's good to see you. Today, I wanted to talk about my top 5 hopes and dreams that Wizards of the Coast will include in their new evolution, as they're calling it, of Dungeons & Dragons 5.5 edition. If that's even the term we're using. We don't even know yet. So basically the news that came out, executive producer of Wizards of the Coast, Ray Winninger, he basically said that there is going to be a new version of the core rulebooks that's coming out, and that includes the Player's Handbook, the Monster's Manual, and the Dungeon Master's Guide. And that's going to be coming out in the year 2024, so we do have some time. Next year, however, in 2022, it looks like they will have more to say about the new books, which can't wait for that to happen. And of course, the new books will be compatible with the current version of the game, a la 3.5 and 3.0 version of D&D. There's also Mordenkainen's Monsters of the Multiverse, which I can make a whole separate video talking about that, and maybe I will do that, who knows. So my top 5 asks, I was compiling a list, and I think quite a few of these ideas are not necessarily new ideas, but let's just jump right into it. Number 1, my first big ask for 5.5 would be to include some sort of point-buy system for class features. Dael Kingsmill over at Monarchs Factory made a video that was kind of referencing this idea of removing levels from D&D in general, and I think it's interesting that there is a point-buy system for stats, but there isn't a point-buy system for character features. You have to always get them at the level in which they show up. So for example, the fighter at level 3, they get their martial archetype, as you can see here. As well as, they get their extra attack at 5th level. At 7th level, you get your martial archetype feature. At 9th level, you get Indomitable. This is like the standard, and what I've noticed is when you play 5th edition for a while, in order to get to the fun, the meat and potatoes, the higher level stuff, you have to play the game for a while. What if you could gain access to any of those abilities at 2nd level, as soon as you get to 2nd level? Now I know there's like, oh, but the balance and everything would be all off and crazy, but I don't do that. I already kind of like squander my player character's hit points because 5th edition is just, your characters are too powerful. But having some sort of system that's already been created where when a character levels up, they can immediately just choose one of these archetype abilities as their level up for that level. Kind of like in 5 Torches Deep. For those of you who have played 5 Torches Deep or read the book, you can see there's like this chart, maybe I'll put that here, where when you level up with your character, you can pick from the abilities within there, and they're kind of streamlined and simple, but why is that not a feature for 5th edition? That would make the game so much more interesting. Of course, you'd have to have prerequisites and that sort of thing. For example, the craziest one that I looked at was the Barbarian, and I was running through this with one of my friends who we were playtesting what this would look like in theory. I guess theory crafting is the appropriate word. And the Barbarian's Primal Champion feature that they get at level 20, we're like, okay, so how do we balance this at level 2? Where is it? What page is this on? Here we go. Primal Champion. At 20th level, you embody the power of the wilds. Your strength and constitution scores increase by 4. Your maximum for those scores is now 24. Yeah, getting that at level 2 probably will break the game in some regard. So it's probably pretty important that there are prerequisites. Like maybe you can't take this Primal Champion ability until you're at least level like 8 or 9. But it would be cool to gain access to these abilities. So seeing a system like that in 5.5 would be really cool to incorporate that as like a house rule sort of thing. All right, number 2. We're just gonna do this in one take. Let's see if I can do that. Freeform ability checks. This isn't really a radical perspective in any way. I just don't understand why perception is such a valuable skill, and there's people are always doing perception checks, but things like animal handling and nature or medicine or history just don't really come up, and they feel almost like as the DM, I have to go out of my way to make sure to like allow the players to have the opportunity to do those checks, when I think it would just make more sense to not necessarily scrap skills altogether, but like pare it down and simplify it so that you do a strength check or a dexterity check or a constitution check. No persuasion check. If you want to do a persuasion check or an intimidation check, it would just be considered a charisma check. And the difference, obviously, between persuasion and intimidation then falls into whatever the character wants to do. So the PC now gets to decide, do I want to be a persuader of NPCs, or do I want to be an intimidator of NPCs? And they don't have to pick the skill that's relevant to that when there are so many skills that don't really have a point. Like the only strength skill that is available is athletics. That's it. You don't have like a strength intimidation and I know that's already in the rulebook, but incorporating that as like just with a little bit more explanation in 5.5, I think would go a long way. Oh, I had one more thing to say about this one. The professor over at Dungeon Craft, he made a great video talking about this and doing exactly this, though he plays Deathbringer, I believe is what he calls his game. But he does a similar thing, or at least he's talked about it in his videos. I'll put a link somewhere. You can check it out. Number 3, something to remove death saving throws from 5th edition. Already, characters have so many hit points. Even as a DM, like if I'm doing rules as written and running a monster or multiple monsters, it's really hard to find that balance between making it a legitimate challenge for my players and just stomping them, like to the point where it's basically a TPK. And part of that comes from the players having so much access to healing. Why are there this 3 chances death saving throw sort of system? Like Old School Essentials has, you hit 0, you're dead. And if you're really nice, you have another system involved with that where, you know, you have a round before you die. Or Hankerin Ferinale, if you like Hankerin Ferinale stuff, Index Card RPG, I think they do that in that system, where when your character drops to 0 hit points, you immediately roll 1d4, and in that many rounds before your next turn, your character is dead. So that's a really interesting system that I have switched into my 5th edition game, where there's no death saves. It's just you roll a d4, and in that many turns, your character is dead. So 5.5, if it has some sort of a way to make death saving throws as they are as rules as written be a, what's the term? A like custom rule set that you could like choose, an optional rule. There we go. An optional variant, I think is what they call it in the DM's guide. An optional rule will be really cool for that, to allow people who want to have a bit more challenging of a game actually have that challenge. Number 4, fix the crap armor and the weapons. So what is it? Padded armor. I'm going to pull this up on my screen here right now. I've already kind of done a house rule system of this, but I know people like to have rules as written and just have that be the game they play by. But studded leather obviously is the best light armor, but why is it only studded leather? I feel like anyone who is a min-maxer and likes to optimize their character, they're not going to be like, I'm choosing padded armor and I'm going to have disadvantage on my stealth because they want to get hit less. Like, especially if you're making your game more lethal, like what I do, people want to min-max and get the most optimal, but not feel like they're being narrowed into this category of like, this is the only type of armor you can have that gives that bonus. I think just cleaning this up in the player's handbook would be nice. Like, splint mail or ring mail, why would you take ring mail? Like, tell me what the point of ring mail is, and why can't ring mail just be like, you know, like heavy armor, I get it for plate mail. Plate mail should be like an armor class 18, and that's even debatable. But all these other heavy armor classes, like the 17, 16, and the 14, so splint, chain, and ring mail respectively, like, why not just make it be heavy armor, and then you give all the options of the types of heavy armor you can have, and then now everyone can have the creative flexibility of wearing whatever kind of armor they want to wear, instead of it being like, oh, well, if you want to have the best armor class as a heavy armor wielder, it's got to be plate mail. Nope, you can't wear chainmail. Nope, you can't wear splint armor. It's just plate armor. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of an easy low bar to fix something like that. Also, weapons. I know there's been a lot of videos that have talked about this. I think the Dungeon Coach makes a great video talking about ways to modify range weapons and melee weapons and to make them more fun. And that includes things like lowering a damage dice and then doubling it. So I think for his, he changed the crossbow from being a 1d8 damage to a 1d6, but doubling it, so it's 2d6 like a greatsword. I think that's a great idea. I think that's really cool. It'd be really cool if more weapons included this kind of option so you can create more creative weapons. That's been really fun for me as a DM to drop in a weapon like a dagger and be like, cool, this dagger is not a D4. It's actually a D8 damage. However, the downside is every time you throw it, there's a chance that it breaks. I feel like that would be a cool thing to include. I don't know. That's just another little thing that I would like. And number 5, my last hope and dream that WotC will include in D&D 5.5 is incorporating things in the front and back pages of their books. Even Morkborg does this. Look, on the first page, you have so many. There's tables, there's names, there's traps in devilry, there's weather. It's so nice to be able to just turn to the back of the book and I have, oh, here's my combat, here's my abilities. Why does WotC not do this with their giant books? You could fit so much information, or like tables, that sort of thing there. Even Old School Essentials does this. Look at this. You open up and they got everything you need to know right there on the main page. But when you open up the player's handbook, not only is the book freaking huge, but look at that. You got a whole bunch of zero. Why? Just put something there. Like even art would be cool. Like, I don't know. I might be being hypercritical, but including some random encounter tables or weather, or, you know, like the weapons and armor, some sort of random table to randomly create your own weapons and armors, that would be a cool thing to incorporate. So anyway, those are my hopes and dreams for D&D Evolved or 5.5 or whatever they call it. So what are yours? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to see and read through those. The internet's a great place for knowledge and information about this hobby, this crazy hobby that we all love. Oh, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. That way you can stay informed when I upload new content. Once again, thank you for watching House DM, and I'll catch you all in the next one.